This is the Outback Hoops Basketball Podcast, where I talk hoops and everything in between. I speak my mind while you enjoy the ride. I'm an Australian product, so prepare to be starstruck from the land down under.
Come on, guys, let's go!
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Outback Hoops Basketball Podcast, brought to you by SnibDubTV. Glad to see everyone here again, another episode. It's been maybe about 3 weeks since the last episode, but a lot has happened since. Man, we've got 1 week left of the season, not many games left. The Western Conference has started separating itself a little bit, but there's still a lot of decision making, especially around that 5th to about the 8th spot in particular I'm talking about. But man, I'm excited for these playoffs. There's literally, in the Western Conference, there is almost 8 teams that have a possible chance of actually winning the NBA title this year. Do we see that often? No. In the East, we've maybe got our, top 4 teams, the Cavs, the Bucks, the Celtics, the 76ers. But overall, it's going to be really entertaining playoffs. And we also got the play-in as well, and that's even going to be entertaining. And we could see teams like the Lakers or even the Warriors, last year's champions, even not make the playoffs this year and losing the play-in. So there is a lot in store, and there's plenty to talk about on this episode. I've been busy of late, a couple of uni assignments to get done. Also went to the local game on the weekend. So I live in Ballarat, which is a small town in Australia, and we have we call it the NBL 1. So if you want to think about in the grand scheme of things, so we kind of got our NBA. The tier below that, now there's different leagues in the world, but in Australia, the league kind of below that is the NBL, which is the Australian National Basketball League, which I'll talk a little bit about in a second because we've been hearing a couple of news updates. And then kind of the league below that is the NBL 1, which is where quite often NBL players will play during our winter and when the season's kind of off. Yeah, because our season's a little bit kind of off. So you kind of got your NBA season, which is kind of in winter, but in Australia it's kind of the summer. But yeah, anyway, so the NBL 1 and so my local team, we have they're called the Ballarat Miners. So yeah, I watched them play on the weekend and I was shocked actually. So we were playing the Melbourne Tigers. There's a lot of teams and a couple of Melbourne teams. There's a few Ballarat teams as well. I was surprised on the other team, the coach of that team was Andrew Gaze. He's a big figure in Australia. He played in the San Antonio Spurs for a couple of years, played in the NBL, been to the Olympics. He's well known to be a commentator of the Olympic Games. I had to double fact check that one, but I'm pretty sure he was in it. And he does a lot of NBL commentating. So I was very surprised to see him coaching. And he also did the Sydney Kings a couple of years ago. But yeah, I was very surprised to see him coaching. And I believe his son was playing. I don't remember the name. But the Miners won. So that's definitely a good thing. And it's always good to kind of support your local talent. We actually had a player who used to play in the girls team. They used to be called the Ballarat Rush, but now they're called the Ballarat Miners. I believe George Amor, and she's actually in America college hoops, and she was in the Final Four. And man, I was watching her games the other day, and she's like a Steph Curry out there. Like she can just like shoot from really long range, and so I'm definitely excited. And yeah, Ballarat and the NBL 1. NBL is definitely a really good foundation for a lot of players. And speaking about that, recently on NBL Overtime, which is kind of like NBA and TNT, but for Australia, LeVar Ball, and he's in Australia at the moment and going to New Zealand and a couple of Oceania countries. And he actually said that LiAngelo Ball is actually looking to sign, hopefully, with the New Zealand Breakers. And man, that would be absolutely massive. We know that famous players Josh Giddey, RJ Hampton, and LaMelo Ball recently played for Australia. Even though LaMelo kind of had a couple of injuries and he didn't play a whole ton of games, it was big for Australia. Like we got behind him. Everyone was going to the Illawarra. He played for the Illawarra Hawks, which is in a town just a little bit out of Sydney. But yeah, he played it, and the NBL just absolutely blew up in that time. And it ended up turning him into the NBA because he played, overseas for a few years. He played in the big baller league for a couple of years. And yeah, to be in the NBL, and he got that, that recognition, which ended up him going to the Charlotte Hornets. And yeah, I do wish LaMelo and Lonzo Ball good health, but I was surprised to hear that. But I know that, LiAngelo Ball for the last couple of years had been looking at an NBL team, originally the Hawks, but I think the Hawks kind of said no because, they didn't really want it to be kind of a brother squad. Even though as much as LeVar Ball wants everyone to be on the same team, he still thinks that's going to happen. I don't know. LiAngelo is kind of getting to the age now where, it's looking a little bit unlikely, and, we know that NBA teams are kind of looking for younger talent nowadays. But yeah, he's looking at the New Zealand Breakers. They recently had an interview with the team during the off, because it's now the off season, and he's saying that they're definitely looking out and having discussions with LeVar Ball and his management team. But I've also got some more news as well. Bronny James, the son of the late, great, still playing, still rolling, NBA all-time scorer LeBron James, he could be possibly going to the NBL. Now, so he hasn't officially committed to a college team. We're expecting him to go to college, but there's also been a couple other rumors as well. And yeah, usually this time of year, everyone, they go to the McDonald's game, they do the 3-point contest, dunk contest, and everyone knows which school they're going to. We don't know yet with Bronny James. And we are hearing rumours and we heard that possibly the New Zealand Breakers might also try to go for Bronny James. I mean, wouldn't that be cool? LiAngelo, who would be on one of their imports, because they kind of go by, you've got to have this set amount of New Zealand, Australian players, but then you're also allowed to bring imports in. So how they would do it is they would bring LiAngelo Ball as a overseas player, but then they'll also put on the Next Stars program, which is the same program that Josh Giddey, RJ Hampton, and LaMelo were on, Next Stars program, and put Bronny James possibly as a contract. Now, I think it's like a $500K contract or something like that. I have to double check the numbers. But man, wouldn't that be absolutely crazy in the NBL? It's interesting because his stock it's definitely gone up of late. We've definitely seen he participated in the dunk contest, and we're definitely seeing glimpses that he can really fly, and he's got that athleticism in him, very similar to LeBron James. But we're also seeing a really good, nice little 3-point shot as well. So it's definitely going to be very interesting. I don't know. There's no 100% guarantee that Bronny James will end up going to the NBL. But if that was the case, I must say I'm going to have to take a New Zealand trip because I haven't actually been up there yet. And, I'm sure my boy Steven Adams would be disappointed if I didn't. But yeah, that is what is happening at the moment. Some news. I'm definitely going to keep it updated. So please stay tuned to this podcast, and yeah, we'll see what happens in the future. Next topic I want to talk about is the NBA current standings. Man, as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, there's no real way to tell how this NBA season is going to go, particularly in the Western Conference. So at the moment, we have first is the Nuggets, second the Grizzlies, and then we've got third is the Kings, and I'll probably just say the Suns are kind of locked in there. They're 8 games behind the Nuggets, but I feel like they've pretty much got a guaranteed slot in the playoffs. But then this is where it starts getting interesting. We've got the Warriors at 5th, we've got the Clippers at 6th, we've got the Pelicans and the Lakers at 7 and 8. Lakers currently in 7th. That was my fault. And then we've got the Wolves, the Thunder, Mavs, and then the Jazz. I'm looking at this now, and I'm thinking the Jazz are probably going to be out of this. But I'm really interested to see that kind of that 5th to 8th kind of slot, because no one wants to be in that 5th spot to go on versus Phoenix. I mean, it would be good entertainment to see, the Warriors, the Clippers, or the Lakers in the first round against the Suns in a playoff matchup. However, if you really want to win the NBA, you're not going to want to go and verse them at all. You'd prefer the Kings, maybe the Grizzlies. Yeah, so at the moment, the Warriors are at number 5th. And I'm going to talk a bit more about them later, a bit later in the show. But it's going to be really interesting to see how they go, because if they go against the Suns, I think the Warriors are honestly losing. We just have no faith in them at home. But I'm going to talk, on the road. But I'm going to talk about them later. Just such a tight NBA conference this year. I'm really interested to see what's going to happen. I'm going to talk about the Mavericks later on in the show, because I am completely shocked. Like, we knew that they were going to maybe take a little bit of a dip because of the defense, but somehow the offense was going to make up for the defense. But we didn't realize it was going to be this bad. But I'm going to talk about that later in the show. We've got the Wolves, who recently got Karl Anthony Towns back. They've kind of been playing pretty mediocre. Karl Anthony Towns hasn't been playing the greatest. But we know that Anthony Edwards, he's been actually playing pretty well. I don't know, it doesn't quite work. And, they gave up a lot of assets to get Rudy Gobert, but so far hasn't really worked out for them. And then we got the Thunder as well, who I think the Thunder probably don't want to be as high as they are in the standings. They're kind of like, oh, come on, Mavs, come on, Jazz, can't climb us. But I'm really loving what I'm seeing from the Thunder this year. We saw, particularly in that highlight in that game against the Lakers when LeBron got the scoring record, they've got some really nice pieces going forward. I'm really liking what I'm seeing from Josh Giddey. They're kind of this really unorthodox but really nice looking team. We've got the two Williams. They shoot really well. Man, they've got a really bright future, and I'm definitely excited to see what they will do in the future. Hopefully Chet Holmgren will be healthy in the next couple of years. I haven't really heard about any updates, but I'm definitely very keen to go and find out more about how they're going. So next up in the podcast, it would be a bit remiss to not talk about the Dallas Mavericks. They did a big trade during the middle of the season, but we did not expect them to take such a dip as what they'd have this season. I'm particularly talking about after the trade deadline, when they did that trade to go and get Kyrie Irving. We knew that their defense was going to slip. Like, we look at their roster. They've got Bertans, they've got Bullock, they've got Doncic, they've got Green, they've got Hardaway, we've got Irving. None of them particularly are known for defense. The only player I can really think of on that list is JaVale McGee. Please tell me if I'm wrong, but he's literally the only defensive player I can think of on this roster. And yeah, we were thinking that maybe, their scoring is going to outbeat their defense. They're going to score so much, defense is not going to be a worry. But we have seen in multiple years, we've seen the Celtics, we have seen the Golden State Warriors. Every single year, at least there is some form of defensive presence. The Lakers in the 2020 bubble, the Heat, who are also in the finals, defense. That's how they won championships. And unfortunately, the Mavs have messed up. They let Jalen Brunson go for literally nothing to the New York Knicks, and wow, he has been absolutely playing terrific over there in New York. And New York are looking in absolutely fantastic shape. Now, we know there's a bit of an injury to Julius Randle, but man, didn't they kind of mess up? And we can just see in LUKA's body language, he just does not want to be there, and he hates losing. And Kyrie Irving. Now, there's been debates online that is it, LUKA's fault, or is it Kyrie's fault that the Mavs are struggling right now? It's neither of them. We know that Kyrie Irving has a reputation with Brooklyn for missing games, blah, blah, blah. But he's been flat out balling out. He's been scoring. He's been doing what Kyrie Irving does. He's one of the most talented players in the NBA. So it is not his fault. It's not LUKA's fault. It's the management for making this trade. Now, we do understand that, the team that they currently have, it was not going to get it done. But even now, it's not going to get it done. And actually, what I will say is that, letting go of Dorian Finney-Smith, he was a really good wing defender, and he can shoot a couple threes. They've made some bad decisions here, and I'm pretty worried that Luka Doncic, he's going to have to consider his options, either via a trade or something, because, by all chances, Kyrie Irving could be out the door next season. Now, I don't think the Los Angeles Lakers, there's been constant talk that, he's going to go to the Los Angeles Lakers, but I have a feeling the Los Angeles Lakers could be leaning more towards like a D'Angelo Russell for their future. So we don't know yet. But man, I want to take a look at these stats right now. And they are currently, guess this, 28th in assists per game. And we can see why this is happening, right? We've got two great players, Kyrie Irving and LUKA Doncic, who are very ball dominant. And, maybe they're scoring a high clip, but it's just, it's obvious, particularly from this stat, that they are just going, okay, now Kyrie, it's your turn. Dribble, dribble, shoot. Okay, Luka, do you little, crossover and, shoot. Assists not going to cut in this league. The Warriors, they're pretty much right up there. I think number 1 at the moment assists. Teams assist and have great ball movement to kind of keep the defenses guessing. And obviously, the Mavs aren't going to be doing that. Another stat is steals per game, they're 28th. Blocks per game, they're 27th. That's just not going to cut it. Oh, and in rebounds, they are 30th. That's just not going to cut it. You need defense. And as I explained earlier, every single championship team or going to a championship, you've got to have some sort of defense, because at the end of the day, and as much as we like to say that offense beats defense beats offense sometimes. You need defense to put up stops, especially when you want to go and compete for a championship. So yeah, they're kind of my thoughts at the moment on the Dallas Mavericks. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about their future because, man, I am worried for this basketball club. Because, yeah, they've given up a lot of their role players. They don't have a ton of depth. I have seen Josh Green. He's been making a couple of strides lately. But we knew that they weren't going to be very good defensive anyway, Christian Wood, he hasn't been fantastic. He's been okay, but he hasn't been fantastic for them. He is a little bit undersized at that position. I want to take a look at the free agent options that are available. And I think one that I'm really looking and paying close attention to is if they could somehow get Brook Lopez. Now, Brook Lopez has been playing out of his mind. I'm going to talk a little bit later when we talk about the MVP race. But I'm actually been really excited to see what Brook Lopez has done this year. He's a good 3-point shooter. We always known him for being a really great player in those not so great Brooklyn Nets teams. But I'm really excited to go and see if the Mavericks could somehow bring Brook Lopez. He's a big dude. He can shoot the three, which he can space out for you, but he can also play at least a little bit of defense. Bit more than Christian Wood. I would like to see that happen. As Draymond Green, I don't know if he's leaving the Warriors. I honestly don't. I have a feeling that the Warriors might, hold off maybe giving him a big contract because he is starting to get a bit older. But, I mean, even Draymond Green would be a solid player for them, honestly. I must say, there's actually not a lot of centers. Mason Plumlee, possibly. I don't know. But I definitely want to see them explore maybe an option to go and get Brook Lopez on the team. It would not be an Outback Hoops basketball podcast without talking about the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm here again, and I get to talk about my Lakers. I'm so happy, so happy. The Lakers have been playing so well. We knew that, maybe they're going to struggle a little bit because LeBron was out for a couple of games, and he's still not 100%. There's a couple of injuries lingering around the team. We saw the other night against the Utah Jazz. Now I'm just letting you know that I'm recording this just before the Clippers game. The Clippers game is going to be the most important Lakers-Clippers game in a really long time, maybe possibly of all time. They're both currently 6th and 7th in the NBA standings, and they're pretty much neck and neck, 11 games behind each other. So this is going to be a big game for those two teams. And I don't know if Paul George, I haven't officially found out if Paul George is playing or not. I'm kind of doubting it. As well as LeBron and Anthony Davis, because it was an overtime game. And yeah, so the other night they were playing against Utah, and, we always refer to these type of games as kind of trap games. When you kind of you're on the end of a road trip, you facing a team which isn't fantastic. Utah is currently 12th at the moment, and they didn't even play Walker Kessler, Lauri Markkanen, and Jordan Clarkson. They didn't play any of those dudes, so this is one of those games where, the Jazz are pretty much depleted and the Lakers were pretty much at full D'Angelo Russell, he's got a bit of a foot injury at the moment. He just hasn't been able to stay on the floor. He's had a couple various leg injuries. I think it was once the ankle, now it's the hip, the foot, yeah. I don't know, man, but hopefully he's back in time for the play-in or playoffs, wherever the Lakers land. But yeah, there's a big game coming up. But one thing that we really do need to see, and we keep talking about it constantly, and I'm not talking about health, because we all know that the Lakers season depends on Anthony Davis and LeBron's health, and we know that Anthony Davis can often be not particularly reliable at times at being able to stay on the floor. However, I really do think that they really need to continue playing through Anthony Davis. First half, fantastic. They were giving the ball, they were moving the ball around, they got a lead. But then in that third and final quarter, Anthony Davis just seemed just like a man out there. Now, there's two versions of man. There's a man who's like, oh man, amongst boys. But this type of man was just a man on the floor. They needed to get him touches. And, I like it when, LeBron was going off a little bit. Austin Reeves, he has been killing it lately. We keep talking about him being in the comparison to Alex Caruso because at the end of the day, he's white and he can play okay. He's a solid role player. But in talking about Anthony Davis, they really need to continue getting involved. That is what the Lakers season is going to depend upon, right? We don't want LeBron doing too much. We know that, he's probably not going to be the healthiest at this stage. But we also really need to make sure that he rests up, right? If he's doing less per possession, that's a big win to us. So Anthony Davis really just, and it's not his fault. It could be the coach too. We've questioned Darvin Ham's coaching style before. But to be able to be really successful, you have to play through Anthony Davis. Hopefully we'll see them hopefully do that against the Clippers. It's going to be a really interesting game. We've got a couple storylines. We've got where the Lakers are currently positioned. We've also got the Russ comes back to the Lakers, which is going to be very big. And I hope Russ, I'm a big Russ fan. I hope Russ balls out. He's been playing a lot better of late, particularly without Paul George. And actually, the Clippers have been really weird this season, to be honest. But yeah, I'm really excited for this matchup, and it's all going to depend on who plays, because it's back-to-back. It was actually I got to talk about that LiAngelo. That three, he just like pulled up. He did like a Steph Curry, just pulled up, hit the backboard and just went in, and it was such a crazy time too. Oh boy. But yeah, it's all going to depend on who's going to play. And I don't know, I'm kind of leaning more towards the Clippers to win tomorrow, because we just know that Tyronn Lue just keeps beating the Lakers every single time. But yeah, I don't think Paul George is playing. So it's going to be close, but I feel like I'm going to pick the Clippers to win and then the Suns to win. I don't know what's going to happen on Sunday, because for all I know, they could rest Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Chris Paul, and Kevin Durant, because they're pretty much got a secured playoff spot, unless they want to try and go and get some more rhythm because Kevin Durant's only been back a couple of games. So we're going to have to see what kind of goes and happens there. But I'm really excited for these Lakers. Yeah, AR, Austin Reeves, playing fantastic. Anthony Davis been playing out of his mind when he gets the ball. LeBron, he's been fine. Actually, he got 37 points the other night, so he can't really complain. And yeah, I do kind of wish Malik Beasley was able to just get a couple more 3-point attempts in. They've kind of been leaning away from him. He's been in the starting lineup, but now kind of since Austin Reeves has kind of been kind of dominant, he's kind of been in that kind of starting lineup. But I really want to see, and Lonnie Walker as well. When he gets the opportunity, he's fantastic. He's athletic. He can shoot. He can defend. I don't know what's going on there. They need to choose Malik Beasley a little bit more, but I hope to see Lonnie Walker get a couple minutes, because I'm thinking he's probably going to be out the door at the end of the season. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the Los Angeles Lakers. All right, let's talk about the MVP race, baby. So at the moment, it's been really interesting because there's So originally I think it was always going to be Giannis. It was always going to be Joel Embiid. It was always going to be Nikola Jokic. But I mean, at the start of the season, we were talking about Anthony Davis almost being MVP, which I kind of wish he was. But really, the MVP chase hasn't really changed kind of at all, and it's been between those three. There was a debate the other day saying that, we're kind of getting a bit bored. I mean, even though Giannis has been playing absolutely out of his mind, we're just kind of getting a little bit bored of what he does. He's just been so good. And he's scoring, to my statistics, he's scoring 31.1% points per game. And that's a pretty good statistics. He's getting, let's have a look. We got 5.7 assists, 0.8 blocks, nearly like 10 rebounds per game. He's been playing absolutely out of his mind, and he's got pretty much the best team in the conference. But at the end of the day, I mean, it probably doesn't help his case, but I just feel like we're kind of just went through statistics and kind of leaning more towards Joel Embiid. Originally it was Jokic, but I feel like it's definitely kind of leaning more towards Joel Embiid. Drew Holiday the other day was like, why isn't Giannis? He keeps getting overlooked. He is getting overlooked every year. But that's because I feel like we are just starting to get a little bit tired because he's just been so solid, and this is what we kind of expect to him, and it's unfortunately for him. But at the end of the day, it is what it is, and it's those role players we've seen. When Giannis was out for a couple of games, the Bucks seem to pick it up. We've got Brook Lopez having his best season. We have Drew Holiday. He's been absolutely fantastic. And it's been such a great pickup since they picked him up from New Orleans a couple of years ago. Chris Middleton, he's been out, but he's been playing okay. But, it just shows that, without Giannis, they could still be a solid, respectable team compared to a team like the 76ers who they've got Joel Embiid. And I think if you took Joel Embiid off that team, they wouldn't be playing so great. I mean, James Harden been playing one of his best years as a role player. He's been, dishing it out. I think he's top in assists. He's been playing solid. Tyrese Maxey, he's been all right. Tobias Harris, a little bit down. But yeah, I feel like, if you took Joel off that team, they wouldn't be playing as well. And I mean, I guess you could say, yeah, Jokic is probably, his team, probably a little bit the same story. But I think with Jokic, even though he's in the top, he's top in the seeding and stuff, we're kind of like, and, we know it's a regular season award, but we're kind of being like, he hasn't been to an NBA championship yet. And I mean, that's very true. That's probably why we're negatively thinking that way. And since we're seeing Joel Embiid, and he's been, every year, he's been really, really close to getting an MVP award, I feel like we're kind of getting a bit more excited about Embiid compared to some of those two players. But I'd like to see your thoughts on this particular topic. This wouldn't be a podcast if I didn't talk about the Golden State Warriors. Man, what a crazy season they've had. They've had the worst road record of an NBA championship winner in, I think, since ever. They've really only been 9-38 on the road this season, which is absolutely mind-boggling. Like, how are you supposed to... I mean, you're still only in the 5th spot. Quite literally, you're only in the 5th spot. And you got that type of road record. There's just been so much going on with these Golden State Warriors. It's hard to explain. But yeah, they've had injuries all year. We've had Andrew Wiggins. Now, he is going to come back, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But these Golden State Warriors have just had injuries. They've had Steph Curry out for a lot of games. Now, they did pick up Dante DiVincenzo, which has been a really great player for them. Not known to be a great defender, but his three-point shooting has been lights out, which has been absolutely fantastic and what the Warriors needed. Not that they need more of it, but, I mean, when you can get some shooting, you might as well take it. Anyway, so, yeah, the Warriors are 5th at the moment. We don't know where they're going to land. At the moment, they're in position to go and face Phoenix, which I'm sure that, the very last part of the season, teams are going to be like, oh, should I win this game? Should I lose this game? So then don't have to face the Suns. Because, I mean, who's going to beat DeAndre Ayton, Ken Durant, Chris Paul, and Devin Booker? I don't know. But yeah, the Warriors, it's really tough to predict how they're going to go this season. Some are predicting that, they could win it all. Any chance? There's 8 teams this year who could possibly win it all. So, I give their hats off to them. They might as well try because there's always a good chance. But it's just really hard to know what to predict. But yeah, I think Andrew Wiggins is the defender they really needed. They've been struggling on defense this year. Taking a look at a lot of these stats, they're between 20th and 26th in like opponent field goal per game, opponent 3 per game, opponent free throw made per game. There's a lot of defensive stats that makes you really question about, could they possibly win? And I feel like lots of these stats are probably on the road because, I mean, no one wants to go to the Golden State Arena because those fans are absolutely wild. I know they said Oracle Arena, but they're in the new arena in San Francisco, the Chase Center. But it's really hard to predict how they're going to do this season. But, they just kind of need some more defense. I think that's really kind of what they're missing. And I feel like, Klay Thompson definitely isn't the two-way defender that he used to be. His 3-point has come back. It took last season and a bit of this season. It just took a long time to go and integrate him. But he's had some big games, and I'm really happy to see that he's really going back to the Klay of old. Maybe not quite the Klay of old that used to get 36 points in a quarter. But man, he's been still pretty solid for them. I don't know what's going to happen to Draymond Green this season. He's one of those players that you look at his stat line and you're like, he doesn't really do that much. But then when you kind of watch his games, he does so much, he's like a behind the back leader. And he's just really good at making those little hustle plays and doing those kind of little things which really makes such a big difference on the floor. He's a little bit undersized as a big man, but his defense is still absolutely great. But yeah, they really need Andrew Wiggins back, and hopefully they can implement him in time to go and make a deep run and get into rhythm in the playoffs. But I'm really concerned about their home record because you just don't know what's going to happen with them. They recently got Gary Payton back, and I reckon that was a really good move. I mean, even though he's had heaps of injuries the last couple of months, I really feel like that was a defender that really did make a difference in their championship run last year. And it was good to see him. He played against the other night against OKC, which was a really important win for them. And he made such great plays. I don't exactly remember how many points he got. I think it was maybe about 16. But he's really needed for them to go and make a defensive run because we know that, Klay's defense isn't fantastic. Steph, he does okay, but not fantastic. Jordan Poole, not really known as a defender. So they really need Gary Payton, especially off the bench and in tight games, to go and defense the opponent's shooting guard or point guard, because we know there's a lot of point guards in this league that are just absolutely fantastic. So yeah, thanks everyone for tuning into the Outback Hoops Basketball podcast. It was an honor to talk to you today. Bit of a long episode today, actually, but I think that there was just so much to cover. So much has happened in the NBA. I'm really excited to hear what happens with Bronny James and LiAngelo Ball, whether they end up going to the NBL or not. That's going to be really interesting and definitely going to keep a bit of an eye on that. But nevertheless, thanks everyone for tuning in. Please feel free to listen on Spotify or Anchor. They kind of changed names of lately, so I'll probably inform you guys of those. Stay tuned on TikTok for little snippets. I post on YouTube, on Spotify. I still need to do Apple. I'll get there eventually. But definitely keep an eye on, and I'm looking forward to either hearing your feedback about the show. Subscribe if you're on YouTube. There's so much to do about this podcast. The basketball world and the SnibDubTV world never ends. But anyway, guys, see you later. Enjoy the show, and I will be back in the future. Thanks, everyone.